Washington, D.C. With the weak global economy at risk, the federal government is on track to exhaust its $31.4 trillion borrowing capacity as early as this month. This will set off an anticipated conflict between President Joe Biden and the newly elected House Republican majority. For Biden and the Democrats, who had one-party rule in Washington for the previous 2 years, the anticipated fight over the debt limit would be a striking illustration of the new reality. It would be a sign of the difficulties ahead in realizing even the modest goals Democrats are bringing to the process of passing legislation in a divided Capitol. The nation's credit will not be held hostage to the demands of newly powerful GOP lawmakers, the White House has declared. However, worries about Kevin McCarthy's capacity to broker any sort of deal to end a standoff are raised by the sacrifices he made on his arduous journey to becoming the new House Speaker. McCarthy claimed to have spoken with Biden about the approaching debt ceiling and informed the president that a government shutdown over spending levels doesn't have to come to that. McCarthy remarked on Tuesday's episode of Fox's Hannity that this is our chance to change the behavior. However, the new speaker refrained from declaring that the House Republicans in power would go so far as to refuse to approve the yearly spending bills required to support the government, as occurred more than 10 years ago during a previous debt ceiling crisis in Congress. McCarthy declared, "We're going to examine every single dollar spent. To avoid a default, the White House has ruled out taking administrative action." As previously said by White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, Congress will need to lift the debt limit without restrictions, and it's just that simple. Efforts to use the debt ceiling as leverage will be unsuccessful. There won't be any taking of hostages. Republican Representative Chip Roy of Texas, one of the McCarthy holdouts and a vocal opponent of government spending, said on Capitol Hill that he wouldn't rule out trying to remove McCarthy from office if he didn't follow through on his promise to demand spending reductions alongside any debt limit increase. Roy said to CNN on Sunday, "We will use the tools of the House to enforce the provisions of the agreement." The federal debt ceiling issue is political theater that incites lawmakers to play hardball in the name of fiscal discipline. However, previous showdowns have had little effect on the federal debt's long-term rise. According to House Majority Leader Steve Scalise of Louisiana, House Republican leaders compare the debt ceiling to a credit card cap and pledge to put mechanisms in place so that you don't keep maxing it out. Scalise declared, "We're going to face this, and I think the American people have called on us to face this." Since payments and receipts change daily, especially with the April 15 tax filing deadline, it is difficult to predict with precision when the government will reach its debt ceiling. Achieving the debt ceiling might happen as soon as this week or as late as March, according to the current situation. Treasury can cease pension fund contributions and borrow from accounts to handle fluctuations in foreign exchange rates when necessary to keep the government running, freeing up cash to pay other obligations. The financial markets would likely tumble if the country went into default. Millions of employees might lose their jobs. The crisis ramifications could be felt for many years to come. Prior to the previous debt ceiling rise, Moody's Analytics described this risk as cataclysmic in a forecast for 2021, meaning that the ensuing mayhem will be caused by dysfunctional government rather than the underlying strength of the American economy. Shai Akabas, Director of Economic Policy at the Bipartisan Policy Center, which predicts the so-called X-date when the government exhausts its extraordinary measures, said that debt limit negotiations are always drawn out and almost always contentious, and the political trends seem to make it likely that they will exacerbate those tendencies and will create a volatile situation. In either case, lawmakers are aware that by engaging in this argument, they are jeopardizing the livelihoods of individuals all around the nation. Numerous economists have issued warnings to them. A 2013 Treasury study referenced the 2011 debt ceiling standoff, which occurred shortly after Republicans took control of the House. It described how deadlocks cause long-lasting damage to financial markets, pointing out that consumer and company confidence dropped to levels usually only seen during recessions. Even though there wasn't a default in the end, it took months for confidence to return, according to the report.